So we're going to make today is a very basic and quick tomato sauce that you can use with pasta. If you wanted to make a lasagna, it would be a great addition to that. So it's really a basic tomato sauce, and on your recipe it even has some variations of adding, say, meat or sausage, or if you wanted to make meatballs. I keep this very basic and then again freeze it and then always have it available. So the serving we're going to do today is enough sauce for 1 pound of pasta. So if you wanted to make spaghetti for dinner, like I said, add some meatballs or something. We're going to be using a 28-ounce can. These are San Marzano style. These are cut tomatoes. In the recipe, it does say either diced or whole. Remember, we talk about tomatoes from the fresh going down all the way to a paste. Every step has a process of either eliminating water or rehydrating and drying out tomatoes. So these are pretty close to if we were going to use fresh tomatoes. The whole ones I like to do, just remember, if you're going to use whole tomatoes, when you crush them, they're like little water balloons, so you want to be really careful. So the first step that we're going to do is I have my small sauce pot going, and we're going to start by adding 2 tablespoons of vegetable oil. Now, this is a sauce, it is definitely going to be better if you make it the day before or a few hours before and allow it to cook either very slow. Usually when I'll make this, I'll actually make a double or a triple recipe so that it cooks together for a long amount of time, and then I just have a lot of leftovers. So I preheated my pot a little bit, watch your oil, and I have 3/4 cup of diced onion. Now, I am probably going to puree this sauce, but I still don't want big chunks of onion. So don't make your blender or your little food processor do too much work. Go ahead and chop them down to like a small dice. Now, if you like, again, we talk about if you like a chunkier style tomato sauce, instead of doing the whole tomatoes where we're going to puree it, you could use diced tomatoes, and then you don't have to puree it at all. These, again, let me see if I can show you. These are kind of little slices to little chunks, so I may not puree it. Maybe I'll leave it whole. I'll kind of decide as I get down to the end of demo what I want to do with it. But again, changing up the variation of the style of the tomato will just give you a little bit of a different sauce. I like to puree the sauce and then put it back on the stove and cook it with a few meatballs, or just buy some frozen meatballs. Put them in the sauce to cook them and warm them up. And then the flavor of the meat goes into the sauce as well. So I'm on about a medium, let's say a medium high. And I am going to get some really good color on these onions. So we'll come back after we've sauteed them for a little while. So you can see 5 minutes later, I allowed these onions to get really nice and brown. Now, I don't want them to burn, but you really do want to get the onions really cooking, because once they start to be put into that tomato sauce, then you're kind of doing a stewing or really simmering process. We really want to get a lot of flavor into these before. So turn your heat down now to a low, because that pan's going to be hot, and we want to move on to the next step, which is adding our Italian seasoning, which is a blended seasoning. So there's things like rosemary, savory, dried oregano, basil, some marjoram. So you could see if you were to buy all these ingredients separately, it could get a little costly. Italian seasoning is one of those I definitely keep in my cabinet all the time and use it. I also minced up those 3 cloves of garlic, so that's the other reason why we want to turn our pan down, because we do not want to burn the garlic and the Italian seasoning. So it's not going to take very long for this next step, maybe about 30 seconds. And what we want to do is toast that garlic. Oh, it smells good already. The garlic and the Italian seasoning. Okay, anytime something is dried, by cooking it into the pan first, we open it up and bloom it and start to toast it. But again, we don't want to burn that garlic. So this pan is really hot. If we wanted to slow down that cooking process, if you can see yours was starting to burn, go in and add your can of tomatoes as soon as you can. So I'm just getting to where it's about aromatic and I can really smell it. It smells great. I'm starting to get some of that fond stuck onto the bottom of the pan. So very carefully without splattering, I'm going to go ahead and add that entire can. Okay. And go ahead and stir to combine. So we want to bring this up to a simmer, not really to boil, okay? So I got everything in there. The other thing I'm going to add now is what we call bay leaves. This is also something new. These are dried, pretty common dried. You can also buy them or find them fresh. Some people actually grow a bay leaf tree in their backyard and you can find them. So these ones, I'm going to go ahead and put 2. They happen to be whole. Just going to sink them in there. Now before you puree or blend your sauce, you need to make sure you remove those. So always keep an idea of how many of them you put in. All right, lid on so that it doesn't spit all over. And we're going to let this simmer and come back in 20 minutes. It's been about 30 minutes. I let this cook a little bit longer while I was preparing some garlic bread. I had to turn my heat down a little bit. It was, you could hear the pasta sauce spitting, and we really didn't want that. Again, you want it to just do a light simmer, not to come to a boil. I'm going to go ahead now, give this just a stir, and as I'm doing that, I'm going to look for those 2 bay leaves I put in there. Now, not to be confused with the basil that was in with the tomatoes. Here's one. So careful, they're going to be a little hot. Let's see if we can find the other one. I'm going to turn this off because I am going to go ahead and puree it and show you what it looks like after. So sometimes you might need to remove some of the sauce in order to find that other bay leaf. Get it here in a second. Sometimes they lay up against the base of the pot and can't find them. But when I pour the mixture into the blender, I'll be able to find it. Okay, we'll go ahead and puree this, and I'll show you, and we'll come back. And remember, we haven't seasoned this yet either, so we need to add some salt and pepper. All right, be right back. All right, so I've pureed that sauce up, as you can see, put it back in the pot, and now we're going to go ahead and adjust the seasoning. So I have a few tasting spoons. I want to taste it just to start off with. I know it's going to need salt and pepper, but I'm not sure how much. Sometimes the tomatoes can be really tart, and sometimes you even want to add a little bit of sugar to it. So I'm going to start with a really good pinch of salt, 3 fingers of pepper. And again, this sauce is going to cook again another 20 to 30 minutes. We're not in any rush. The longer this sauce cooks, the more the garlic and the onions kind of come together and become one. Of course, it's always better made even the day before and reheated. So we'll let this go. You can see it's just a beautiful red, rich sauce. At this point, if you wanted to turn it into a meat sauce, you could even add, say, some whole sausage in here at this time, or you can add your meatballs and reheat them in the sauce for the last 30 minutes while the sauce is starting to cook. So again, just that seasoning, taste it as you go. If you feel like you want it spicier, you could add some red crushed chili flakes at this point. If you feel it needs more Italian seasoning or some more garlic, you can do that. And again, if your tomatoes are a little too tart, kind of acidy, start with like maybe 1/4 teaspoon of some granulated sugar, and it will help sweeten it up just a little bit. So we're going to go for another 30 minutes, and that is your homemade tomato sauce.